çok sapat.
Lovely viewers, gather close because today's story is one that warms the heart, stirs the emotions, and reminds every single one of us that love, real love, can survive fame, time, chaos, and every whirlwind life throws along the way. As always, thank you for being here, for clicking in, for listening, and for following these journeys with open hearts. Now settle in, because what song Hye Kyo has just done for her anniversary with Lee Min-ho is something so tender, so unexpected, and so deeply emotional that fans across the world have been wiping their eyes and whispering, maybe love is real after all. When the anniversary day arrived, 1 year since the couple publicly confirmed the relationship that had secretly bloomed long before, many fans expected a subtle post, or maybe even silence, considering how private the actress has always been. But what happened next wasn't subtle. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't hidden behind metaphors or coded emojis. It was Song Hye Kyo, beautifully vulnerable, lovingly sincere, and emotionally open in a way she rarely shows. And when she hit post, she didn't just speak to Lee Min-ho. She spoke to millions. She spoke to anyone who has loved, who has lost, who has hoped, or who has been afraid to believe in love again. It all started with a single photo, a soft, warm-toned picture of a simple moment. Lee Min-ho laughing with his head turned slightly away from the camera, sunlight touching his cheek. Fans immediately recognized it wasn't a staged photoshoot shot. It wasn't professionally retouched. It was real, quiet, candid, intimate. A moment captured by someone who wasn't thinking about the perfect angle or the perfect lighting. Someone who loved the subject more than the aesthetics. And that someone was, of course, Song Hye Kyo. But the real emotional avalanche began when viewers scrolled down to read the caption. Instead of a short sentence or a poetic line, she wrote from the heart, unveiling feelings she had held close for so many years. Her words dripped with sincerity, with gratitude, with the softness of a woman who had healed, rediscovered joy, and finally allowed herself to love without fear again. She began by saying how unexpected love had been for her. How she thought she had already lived through her greatest love stories, how she believed her heart had already given its deepest chapters. She confessed that for a long time, she had doubted whether she could ever feel safe being vulnerable again, whether she could open her heart without holding pieces of it back in self-defense. But then, gently, quietly, and without forcing its way in, Lee Min-ho arrived in her life like warmth returning after a long winter. He didn't rush her, didn't pressure her, didn't try to fix her. Instead, he simply stayed, kindly, patiently, consistently. And as she wrote, "You didn't ask me to trust you. You simply became someone I could trust." Those words alone sent fans into emotional chaos. Comment sections exploded. Tears flowed. People who had gone through heartbreaks suddenly felt their hearts swell. But that was only the beginning, because Song Hye Kyo continued her message with what might be one of the most beautiful, vulnerable declarations she has ever shared publicly. She wrote about the small things, the ordinary moments that built their love story. How Lee Min-ho always notices when she's tired, even when she tries to hide it. How he always makes sure she eats, sometimes jokingly threatening to call backup if she skips meals. How he listens more than he talks, especially when she needs to pour out her heart. How he takes care of her in ways she didn't know she needed. How he makes her laugh, the big, unrestrained kind of laugh she thought she had forgotten how to make. She shared how deeply grateful she feels for the way he loves. Not loudly, not for show, but quietly, gently, protectively. She described how he holds her hand like she's something precious, not fragile, but treasured. She even joked lightly about how he gets jealous when she praises other actors, but follows it with a shy smile because he knows she chose him. Then came the line that silenced the internet for hours. "You taught me that love doesn't need to be perfect to be real. It just needs to be honest." Fans replayed those words over and over again, some writing them into fan edits, others sharing them as quotes, and thousands turning them into wallpapers and short videos. People who had long given up on love found themselves, for the first time in a while, allowing a little hope to slip back in. But Song Hye Kyo wasn't done. Her message deepened as she reflected on how difficult it was to open her heart again after a very public heartbreak. She explained that Min-ho never treated her pain as a burden. He never rushed her healing. He never made her feel like her past made her unworthy of a future. Instead, he embraced her story, her scars, her hesitation, and made room for all of it. "You didn't make me forget the pain," she wrote. "You helped me remember how to feel joy again." This single sentence became the highlight of every news article, every fan discussion, and every emotional reaction video posted online. It resonated with the world, not because she is a celebrity but because it is something so human, so deeply relatable. Everyone has moments where they fear love will never feel the same again. And here was a woman who had gone through fire, standing boldly in the warmth of a new beginning. She went on to describe how safe she feels with Lee Min-ho, how their relationship flourished not because of grand gestures but because of mutual respect, shared laughter, quiet nights watching movies, and morning walks before the world wakes up. She thanked him for loving her in a way that made her feel not like a superstar, but like a woman, someone cherished, valued, seen, and understood. Then came the most heartfelt moment of all. Her declaration that Lee Min-ho gave her something she didn't think she needed: the freedom to be herself. Not the actress, not the public figure, not the icon, just Hye Kyo. The woman who likes long breakfasts, who cries during movies, who loves taking photographs of flowers, who sometimes gets anxious before big events, who softens when someone kisses the top of her head. She closed the message with a line so simple yet so powerful that fans said they felt it straight in their souls. "Thank you for choosing me every day." And as if that wasn't enough to send the world spiraling, Lee Min-ho responded just minutes later with his own message. Short but overflowing with emotion. His comment read, "Always, yesterday, today, and every tomorrow we're blessed with." Not long after the messages went viral, the couple's closest circle revealed more of the private details from their celebration, and every detail made their fans fall even more in love with their relationship. After Lee Min-ho wrote his soft, almost poetic reply online, he reportedly drove to meet her in person with a bouquet that wasn't extravagant or flashy. Instead, it was filled with her favorite flowers, simple white peonies. The ones she once mentioned reminded her of her mother's garden from childhood. He remembered. He always remembers the small, quiet details that matter most to her. And that alone showed how deeply he pays attention. Witnesses said that when he arrived, Song Hye Kyo stepped outside looking shy but glowing, almost embarrassed that her personal message had captivated the entire world. But when Min-ho wrapped his arms around her, all of that melted away. It was like watching two people who don't need to perform their love. They simply live it. They talked softly, laughed quietly, and walked hand in hand back inside where a small dinner had been prepared by staff who stepped out to give them privacy. Inside, the table wasn't set for a celebrity couple trying to impress anyone. It was set for two people who cherish each other deeply. Candlelight flickered. Soft music played. And on the table sat a framed copy of the candid photo she had posted, the one she captured of Min-ho's laugh. But here's the part that stunned those who saw it. The frame wasn't something they bought. It was handmade by Min-ho himself. Yes, crafted. By hand. Apparently, he had started making it weeks before, carving and sanding the wood until it was smooth, then engraving tiny initials on the back, and red heart. He told friends he wanted to give her something that wasn't expensive, not flashy, not public. Something that came from his own hands, something she could keep close. When he gave it to her, she reportedly teared up, whispering that she didn't expect something so personal, so thoughtful. She traced the engraving with her finger and told him she would cherish it forever. And Min-ho, ever the gentleman, simply smiled and said, "It's just a small piece of my heart for you." Lovely viewers, can you feel your hearts melting? Because the people around them certainly did. One of the staff members said it was like watching two souls speaking without words. And that's when the night took an even sweeter turn. After dinner, they stepped out to the balcony to look at the city lights. It wasn't a fancy moment, but it was magical. Hye Kyo leaned her head on his shoulder, and Min-ho wrapped his coat around her because the breeze had grown cooler. They stood that way for a long time, quiet, calm, breathing in sync. Those who saw it said it felt like watching a couple who had finally found peace, home, and belonging in each other. Later they exchanged small private gifts. Hye Kyo gave him a simple silver bracelet, engraved with a phrase only they understand. When he read it, he smiled in that warm, boyish way that fans adore. He held her face gently and kissed her forehead, thanking her for seeing the world with him and making his life feel complete. But the night didn't stay private for long, because as fans continued reacting to the anniversary post, something beautiful started happening across the internet. People began sharing their own stories of healing, of finding love again after heartbreak, of rediscovering hope. Couples wrote to each other using quotes from Hye Kyo's message. Some posted the candid photo as a symbol of love that feels natural and unforced. Others shared stories of how they finally felt brave enough to open their hearts again. It was as if the world paused to celebrate the idea that love, for all its complications, can still be gentle, real, and worth fighting for. And here's something touching. Older fans who had followed Hye Kyo since her earliest dramas wrote long messages saying how happy they were to see her smile like this. Younger fans said the couple's love taught them the importance of patience, communication, and choosing someone who respects their wounds instead of judging them. Even people who weren't fans before admitted they felt moved by her honesty. What truly shocked many was how many celebrities quietly liked or referenced her post. Subtle heart emojis, tag here and there, a little message saying, "Love suits you." Even actors known for keeping personal opinions private couldn't hold back. It was like the entire entertainment industry exhaled in relief, finally seeing two people who carry so much pressure experience something genuine. But one of the sweetest developments came from Lee Min-ho himself. The next morning, fans noticed that he updated his Instagram story with a short video clip. Nothing too revealing, but intimate enough to stir emotions. It was a clip of shadows on a wall. Two shadows leaning close to each other. Two shadows holding hands. The caption underneath read, "Grateful for every moment." It was simple, poetic, and absolutely unmistakable. Anyone could see that those shadows belonged to him and Hye Kyo. And instead of hiding it, he embraced it. He wasn't showing off. He was honoring their love in a way that felt elegant and respectful. Fans flooded social media with reactions, some screaming, some crying, some saying they finally believed in destiny again. It became one of the most shared stories of the day. News outlets picked it up. Bloggers analyzed every detail. Couples recreated the shadow pose as a challenge. It was like a wave of love spread across the internet, all thanks to two people who dared to be honest about their feelings. But the story continues, lovely viewers. Because those close to the couple revealed one last detail, one that truly captures the depth of their bond. Before the night ended, Min-ho asked Hye Kyo to step into the living room, where the lights had been dimmed. He reached into his pocket, not for a ring or anything extravagant, but for a small slip of paper. On it he had written a promise. Not a proposal, not a grand vow, just a promise between lovers. It read, "I will love you through every season, your summers, your storms, your winters, and your dawns." When she read it, she touched his chest, right where his heartbeat was strongest, and whispered, "Then let's walk through every season together." And that, viewers, became the moment insiders described as more romantic than any drama either of them has ever starred in. It was real, pure, heart-deep. And as they closed the curtains that night, stepping away from the cameras and the noise of the world, one thing was clear. Song Hye Kyo and Lee Min-ho have become more than a couple. They have become a symbol of healing, of second chances, of love that grows patiently and beautifully. Their anniversary message didn't just make fans believe in love again. It reminded people that love is not about perfection. It's about effort, sincerity, consistency, and courage. It's about choosing someone who chooses you. And it's about being brave enough to open your heart even after life has bruised it. After agreeing to walk through every season together, the couple didn't rush back into conversation or celebration. Instead, they stood there quietly, absorbing the intimacy of that moment. It was as if the world paused for them, just them. No cameras, no expectations, no noise. Only two hearts, two breaths, two souls choosing one another with a depth that words could barely capture. Eventually, Min-ho took her hand again and led her to the couch. But here's where another heartwarming surprise unfolded, one he had been preparing for weeks. Beneath the coffee table was a small box wrapped in simple brown paper and tied with twine. Not glamorous, not expensive, but deeply thoughtful. "Open it," he said softly. When Hye Kyo untied the twine and peeled back the paper, she found a small scrapbook, handmade, filled with moments they had collected together. Not public photos, not staged magazine shots, but private snapshots of their love story. Blurry selfies from early morning walks, pictures of their hands intertwined, pages with handwritten notes they had exchanged, dried petals from the flowers he once placed in her hair, and even the ticket stubs from their first quiet movie night when they disguised themselves in hoodies and masks to avoid being recognized. On the first page, in Min Ho's neat handwriting, he had written, "Our story didn't start perfect. That's why it's perfect for us." Hye Kyo's breath caught. She ran her fingers over the dried petals he saved, the notes he wrote, the tiny sketches he had drawn in the margins. This wasn't a gift made for the world or the media. This was something crafted for her heart alone. A piece of him, of their journey, bound together with quiet love. But then she turned to the last page, and that's when her eyes filled again. It wasn't a photo or a note or a ticket stub. It was a blank page with a single line written at the top. "Let's continue filling these pages together." Hye Kyo looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper as she asked, "Are you sure you want to fill all of them with me?" Min Ho didn't rush to answer. He didn't need dramatic pauses or scripted lines. He simply leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers and whispered, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Lovely viewers, at this point anybody watching them, anyone standing anywhere near that living room, would have melted instantly. Their bond had grown into something so gentle yet so powerful that those around them said you could feel the sincerity in the air, almost like warmth settling into your chest. But the night wasn't over yet. Because after they sat together flipping through the scrapbook, laughing at some photos and blushing at others, Min Ho suddenly got up and walked over to the piano in the corner of the room. Yes, he sat down at the piano. Now, many people know Lee Min Ho can sing, but few know he plays piano too. Quietly, privately, mostly for moments that matter. And tonight was one of those moments. He began playing a soft melody, the kind that feels like moonlight touching water. Slow, dreamy, full of heart. And while playing, he said, without looking away from the keys, "I wrote something for you." Hye Kyo's eyes widened. She stood there for a moment, stunned, before slowly walking over and sitting beside him. Then, as the melody flowed, Min Ho began to sing, not loudly, not dramatically, but tenderly, like the song was a secret meant only for her. "Your heart found mine. In the quiet between storms, you lit the dark, where no one else could warm. If love is a journey, then I'll walk every mile, because you, my love, make every tomorrow worthwhile." Lovely viewers, imagine hearing this song from the man you love, on the night of an anniversary message that already broke the internet. It was too much, too beautiful, too intimate. Hye Kyo couldn't hold back her tears. She covered her mouth, trying to stay quiet, but Min Ho heard her sniffle. He stopped playing, turned to her, and pulled her into his arms without hesitation. "I didn't want to make you cry," he whispered into her hair. She shook her head with a trembling smile. "These aren't sad tears. These are, I never thought I'd feel this loved again tears." And that, viewers, is when Min Ho held her even closer and said, "Then let me give you a lifetime more of them." That one sentence sent fans into emotional overdrive once news leaked out later. It was not a proposal. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It was a promise of intention, a declaration that he sees a future with her, steady and certain. After the song, they stayed at the piano bench for a long time, her head on his shoulder, his hand wrapped around hers. They didn't need to speak. Their silence was full of understanding, full of the kind of connection that goes beyond romance into something deeper, almost spiritual. Later that night, before going to sleep, they sat together on the floor by the large window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights blink like stars that had fallen to earth.